the first thing when something happens enough to trigger that, the first thing is fear, disgust, loss of self-worth, lack of trust. Just my confidence is down. I imposter syndrome wakes up and becomes this huge monster.
Yep.
Um, just I just feel terrible. I feel like I would rather the earth swallow me alive and just
Yeah.
not exist anymore.
Hello. So thank you so much for joining me on the second call. So your topic was, how can I take failure less personally? Um, so let's start off with how your week went since we've talked last.
Yeah. My week has been the normal up and down. I've had some wins and I've had some hard times, but I think for me right now, I'm just really strapping to focus on positive and real. I'm trying to take a step back when something happens and dissect if it's fact or feeling and just try to sit with that a little bit before I react quickly, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And what you said it factor feeling, what kind of feelings are there? Like what and when I talk about feelings, I'm talking about emotions. So what emotions are actually coming up for you when these things pop up?
Yeah. So I suffer from pretty severe RSD. And the first thing when something happens enough to trigger that, the first thing is fear, disgust, loss of self-worth, lack of trust. Just my confidence is down. I imposter syndrome wakes up and becomes this huge monster.
Yep.
Um, just I just feel terrible. I feel like I would rather the earth swallow me alive and just
Yeah.
not exist anymore because
Yep.
I don't like being a burden on people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And you say fear. What is the fear about? Is the fear about, as you said, being a burden, or is there other things with that?
Like letting people down, not being able to keep promises or just a lot of it is like comes back to trust, people trusting me or people relying on me for stuff and me just not being able to show up for it. I
Yep.
don't like that. There's a lot of fear of rejection, obviously. I'd rather not have to go through that.
Yes.
If that would be great.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the first thing that pops up is nobody wants you. Nobody cares about you, nobody wants you,
Mm.
and you should.
Yeah, nobody wants you, nobody cares about you. And what would you say if you had a 3-year-old little girl sitting next to you, like literally, like right here sitting next to you, and she was afraid that nobody cared about her? What would you say to her?
I would say that that's not true. And there was absolute no reason to even think that. And I would hug her.
Yeah, and does that resonate at all with you? Or how does that feel for you to say?
Well, I don't know. It's easy for me to give it, but it's harder for me to accept it.
Yeah, so part of it's like, I don't really know if this is true or if it's real. Um, I'm gonna try to say something and you repeat this to yourself and see if it's resonates differently. How does that sound?
Or
Cool. Um, so hey, sweetheart, And you can say this out loud or inside your head. So, hey, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you feel like that. That must be really lonely to feel like that.
Mm.
And, and let me know when you're ready next.
Yeah.
And then you could say something, just because you didn't accomplish something doesn't mean you're letting people down. It just might mean there's something to learn or something to adjust. And we can absolutely do that.
I have little tiny voices in my head saying that's not true.
And what's not true about it?
That you deserve it and you should have never been in that place to begin with.
Hmm.
They're mean.
It's very factual based as well. To me, it sounds like there's a thinking part of you that's trying to outthink, and it's like, no, these are the facts. No, you
I
should have
know.
never deserved that. At a certain point, because I'll screen share here. Um, to me, it sounds like, so this is the INFP model for the round table, and we talked about this a little bit last time. Usually, what happens is this decision making 3-year-old inner child for the INFPs can come in and say, oh, you're not doing enough. How dare you not be getting enough stuff done? Oh, you failed. This means something about other people are going to interpret this about something about me. So anytime you start saying like I should be doing things differently or things should be falling into place differently, it's usually this executive outward facing thinking that's going like we're not getting enough done or we're messing up, and then this people are going to interpret this about me. And it's just like this part of you needs to realize like it's okay to be scared and it's okay to have different fears going on about wanting to get stuff done and having this be really important to them. But at the same time, getting stuff done isn't all that you bring to people. You bring to people your caringness, you bring to people your heart, you bring to people your ability to find other solutions, you bring people your previous experiences. So looking at these literally 3 other parts of you. So just because things didn't work out doesn't mean that you failed as a person or people aren't going to like you or doesn't mean anything about you as a person. It just means that maybe there's something to learn and there's something to grow. And as long as at a certain point you have to say to this part of you like, I understand you're scared, but we're not doing this anymore, because it's usually coming from a place of fear or some kind of emotion that they're afraid or they're afraid of something, and then this is popping up, their words are saying this, so it's usually just a sign that something's going on with this part of them.
Yeah.
what do you what is what do you feel about this and what do you think about this? And when I say those questions, I'm trying to tap into this feeling part of you and then the thinking part of you as well.
Because apparently they're very different and they fight a lot.
Yeah, they're battling for the decisions because they're both decision making parts of you.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I said focusing on fact and feeling when I started, because I do recognize they are different. Um, I feel like I should be more receptive to everything you're saying. My
Mm-hmm.
logical brain knows that you're right, but
Yes.
at the time, I still am struggling with accepting it for myself.
Uh-huh.
Um, it takes time for me to give myself grace, and I always put so much like pressure and high standards for my own expectations of myself because that's all I can control. And
Yeah.
I think I go with that. Um, because that is the only thing I can control. I could have controlled it better. I could have done it better, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just disappointment in myself for
Mm.
being position. And I give grace so easily to other people, and I just struggle so hard to just accept it for myself too.
Yeah. And what's the hardest thing for you to accept about it?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I like things to be perfect and done correctly the first time. And when I go through this like stumbling phase, almost like a baby trying to walk and learning and falling and getting up, which is completely normal for any
Yeah.
human. I guess I just expect that I absorb information and I stand up and I go running with it and I don't stumble and I don't fall. And every time I fall, it's an immediate failure that affects my worth, my value.
Yeah. Why is a failure a symbol of your worth?
Because I've equated my value with my productivity,
So as long as I'm producing things, I am a worthy person.
basically,
And
which
if
is
I'm
so
not,
messed up.
yeah, and if I'm not producing things, then guess what? There goes my worth. So that's a lot of pressure to be putting on you getting stuff done, putting things out there, and when things don't line up perfectly, it makes a lot of sense why you're struggling with this because you're like, well, if this doesn't work out, then I'm not worthy and it says something about my worth.
Yeah, I think it's a trauma response too from a previous marriage. There was a lot of that going on, for it was probably drilled in me that, this is how it is.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff when we assign our worth is usually coming from something like that. Like learned it from childhood, from previous relationships, from a relationship with your business partner, relationship from a boss. There's a lot of different ways that we can get this stuff programmed. So it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're always going to have this forever. It just means there's probably something to relearn. And once you relearn that, both your both your adult parts of you and then your inner children parts of you, because it sounds like your adult parts of you understand, but your inner children are still like, oh, I don't know about this. And then they're still trying to control your worth based on your outcomes versus looking for your worth with your values, with what makes you you.
Yeah.
So if your worthiness comes from how you show up in the world, from how you are as a person, with how you lead people, with your values, with what's important to you, and like what you are able to control as a person, what would that make for your worthiness?
Well, then that means it depends on what happens day by day. It's not something that's fixed. It's a variable. And there can be days where it's super high and days where it's super low, and that's not something sustainable.
Yeah, agreed. Um, and if your worthiness was to come from just a part of who you are and like coming from inside you, what would that like? And other people can't touch it and other people can't affect it, and literally other people cannot get to it. What would that do for you?
Problem is, I don't even know what that is. Like, I'm sitting here trying to even think, and I'm just blinking.
I think I think that your executive down here, outward facing thinking is trying to control your worthiness and it needs to control other things that it can control, like small little things that you can do with data and small little things that you can do with things during the day, and not trying to control your worthiness, because as long as you're trying to think about your worthiness, it's never going to be found because that part of you literally cannot control it.
Mm, yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I really don't.
So what can your executive 3-year-old inner child down here, what can it control with making decisions in your life?
Mm. That's a great question. I wish it would control the things that actually mattered. Like instead of telling me you need to do this, you need to do that to actually get it done, so I can stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to control. I literally am just sitting here clueless.
Sure.
I
So
don't
your
know.
your executive outward facing thinking is really good at like if someone if you have a couple things to do, it's like let me go do it. So it's really good at just going out there and being like, okay, there's this information. Someone came to me, they need something done with this. Okay, let me just go do it. Let me go get it done real quick so I can keep the ball rolling for them. So it's really good at understanding how do I turn this into a system? So how can I make systems easier in my life? Less things for me to do like something super simple is bills on auto pay. That's right up that part's alley. The less time you have to spend doing the same things, the same tasks, that is that part of you starting to light up and going like, okay, I can create really nice plans. I can create beautiful systems for myself that lets my life be easier day to day. And it lets me keep growing, keep spending more time with my family, keep doing what I'm doing with my career and business. So I can go out there and do the stuff I'm wanting to do and not relying on this to do everything, but relying on this for a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Now I remember when we were talking last week that we we decided that my 3-year-old inner child was my anxiety, my business partner that I was talking about to get the stuff done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think like when you said planning and systems and stuff, I think I have a love-hate relationship with systems because it's it's easy for me to get into the zone of here's what we need to do and here's the way to do it and just go through the whole entire process. But then after that, once the plan is done, it's never executed. And if it's not executed, what's the whole point of doing it? So I kind of resent systems a little bit because of that, because I spend so much time perfecting them, but if I cannot get myself to act upon them, then it's like I never did anything.
Yeah.
And
And
it's that whole,
what if the systems weren't related to your worth at all?
I
Would it be
mean,
would it be easier to get them done?
I think that's probably where like maybe other things get in the way, like maybe ADHD or something, because I just cannot get myself to do them or remember them or find the correct people to delegate to get them done. And then I find myself going running after the next shiny object and forgetting about it altogether. So it's just been a really harsh cycle that I've seen this pattern happen over and over again the last like 5 years at least, which in the pattern itself over the years is where I'm like, you're never going to get this done because you've never proven that you were able to get this done. So don't bother
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
which part of you, which voice is that of the four parts of you? Which voice? Who's that speaking?
well, from what you said last time, it's probably the 10-year-old.
Yes, like this hasn't worked before, just don't even try again. And it's really important to tell that part, like, thank you very much for speaking up, sweetheart. But at the same time, if we do things differently, we'll get different results. And that's how you really get that part to stop that voice. So it's not a fact. It's just this part of you is just probably afraid, freaked out, and speaking up. And it's like, I don't know what to do other than to say this, especially if these two parts of you are deathly afraid of your worth being attached to what you put out there. That is a lot of pressure to get things done and get things done the right way.
Yeah. Or get it done at all. Even started. I'd like to just start.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier when. So what I'm saying is like, if you can get your worth unattached to attached to other things, not your what you're putting out there, it's going to make putting things out there so much easier because there's going to be way less pressure on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm struggling to figure out what that value is because in my head it's almost like a big ball of yarn and everything touches everything and maybe a metal ball of yarn where it's all shorting each other because it's all touching each other. So I'm like, which part of that? Because which part of it is supposed to be worth and value, and which part of it is not supposed to be worth and like untangling that mess sounds really messy right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And it is confusing because you're like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how to figure it out. What does it feel like? And it's so much more simple. It's so much more simple. You want to go through an exercise with me with this?
So,
Okay, so close your eyes and get really comfortable. Take 3 deep breaths with the exhales being longer than the inhales. All right, and with your eyes still closed, we're going to go in your body and say, if you were to feel a sense of worth in your bones, in your body, in somewhere, where would that be found?
heart,
In your heart?
maybe.
Sure. Well, yeah, we'll go with it. And if your sense of worth was to be in your heart, what would it feel like? Like what would the consistency be of it? Would it be really light? Would it be heavy and dense? Would it be a combination? Would it have spikes on the outside? What would that feel like for you?
Um, it would feel like soft and pliable, like Play-Doh maybe.
Mm-hmm. So it's flexible, it can bend, but it has some consistency there. Like you can shape it a little bit.
Yeah, like when you touch it, it's not hard to touch. It kind of bounces with you with your like memory foam almost.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, no. And what color would it be? Does it have a color? Is it clear? Does it have multiple colors?
Right now it's purple.
Oh, beautiful. And what shade of purple? Light purple, dark purple.
Almost like a warm lavender, like a mauve. I don't know. I can see it. I don't know
Yeah.
what exactly that color.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And does it have any kind of smell? So smell like lavender specifically or other smells, or does it not have a smell at all? Sometimes these things have smells, sometimes they don't.
No, I don't smell anything.
And why and then temperature wise, is it cold? Is it warm? Is it hot? Is it just room temperature?
It's warm to touch, but it's not hot, scalding hot. It's like a comfortable warm.
Mm. So it sounds very relaxing.
Yeah, like those little heat warmer bags.
Nice. And then how long Or let me ask a different question. Does the does this texture, the representation of the worthiness, does it have a message for you right now?
The texture is almost like a shiny, smooth rubber.
Mm.
It's shiny, but it's smooth and it's easy to press, almost like those like toy parts or something where kids learn about the body. I
Yeah,
can't,
yeah, yeah.
I don't
Yeah, nice.
know.
There is no wrong answer here. Everything works. And who gets to see this worthiness?
I don't know because I could see it clearly, but it seems like it's in a really dark place. It's like darkness around it,
Hmm.
laying
Oh,
down and hiding.
yeah, what's the darkness about?
I don't know. It's just in a place where the background is black.
Hmm. Yeah, and who's had influence over the worthiness in the past?
I don't know. It's sitting by itself right now. No, it's in anybody.
Um, and what kind of emotions does it have, or how's it feeling?
It's laying down side like on its side. So it's not standing upright. It's not walking around happy. It's just there. It's laying there and it's in the dark and it's by itself.
Hmm. Is it lonely?
I'm sure.
Is it afraid?
Probably.
Does it know that it doesn't have to sit there alone anymore?
Maybe. I don't know why it's there.
Hmm. When worthiness has been impacted by the wrong people, it can feel alone, it can feel isolated, and it can feel like everyone has a sense of ownership over it other than you. Does it feel like that at all?
Yeah.
And what does the worthiness need from you going forward to help make it feel stronger, less alone?
I feel like it's disconnected and it needs to be connected again.
Awesome. And does it know how to do that, or what it needs to feel connected to you?
I don't. It doesn't feel like it wants to change. It just feels like it's there and it's accepted.
Yeah. And would it be helpful if you, because when the worthiness is out the window like this, we often need to change within ourselves, stop tolerating certain stuff, stop listening to people, stop beating ourselves up, some things like this. So the worthiness can come back into us and it can feel safe within us. So we're not allowing other people to knock the worthiness around. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would your extroverted thinking, if that stopped beating you up about your worthiness, would that help?
Probably.
What is your extroverted thinking part of you think about that?
Um, it's just I don't know. It's just saying something about actions.
Yeah, your TE wants actions, but the actions that it's trying to take aren't going to get it where it's trying to go. So we've got to kind of reposition it to go in the direction it's wanting you to go, because it wants you to go in the direction. It's just not helping you get there. It's like it's sabotaging where it's trying to go, because it wants to go somewhere, but you're not able to get there as long as your TE is beating you up and trying to control everything.
Yeah. I don't know how to get rid of it.
You don't get rid of it, you harness it. Let me show you here. Thank your worthiness for talking, and ask if it has anything else to say before we move on.
Um, Not really. It's just blank.
Yep. Yep. And that makes sense for where it is. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just showing some like things need to change inside to get that worthiness to come back and feel safe within you. Safe and like content. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So to get you so the worthiness feels safe within you, something that needs to happen is usually the inner parent here needs to step up and look for other options and look for opportunities, or at the same time not be chasing all those different opportunities and options, and say, look, I understand this is exciting, I understand that all this stuff is going on, but is this actually helping me get to where I want to go if I've been doing the same thing as I've done in the past? Or do I need to slow down a little bit, even though it's uncomfortable, so I can put some things in place that can help me get to where I want to go easier, like some of the systems that your TE is trying to do?
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling a sense of needing to slow down, needing to think these things through and make sure that, I'm not, I'm out of this circle that keeps happening.
Yeah. And looking at the wisdom of your 10-year-old inner child here, which can really help you slow down and anchor into what you're trying to do. It's a huge piece of this puzzle. What does this part of you have any insight of to something that you can let go of, or something you need to stop chasing right now, at least? And it can be something small, not so start with something small. Don't start with like the big decisions in your life.
Um, like actual things to let go of, or like the ideas.
Actual things to let go of, or the ideas, or both, whatever it comes up with.
Um, I mean, I've been I've been going through the process of like minimalizing my life. All the small, tiny things that I used to think I needed are actually just visual clutter to me right now and dollar signs.
Mm-hmm.
So I've started just trying to clean up my space so my brain doesn't hurt so much, and also thinking through 10,000 times before I buy anything
Yeah.
to truly make sure, does it have a home, does it have a purpose, or are you just buying this because it makes you feel good? Like
Yes.
that's been something that I've been working on in the last 5 years, and it's just gotten so much easier to let go of stuff now. I've been donating a lot of crap. I haven't been buying new things. I used to do like retail therapy. Every time something happens, oh, I'm gonna go shopping, or I'm gonna go buy this or buy that, or I'm gonna go on a trip. The trips I'm not touching. Those
Yes.
have to stay. But in order for me to keep the trips, I stop the trips to the grocery store and the shopping centers and the malls and stuff. So that's a super small thing. I even stopped buying books anytime I want to just because I felt like it and actually pushing myself to read them first, which is huge for me. I haven't bought a book in a very long time.
So those are two great examples of you slowing down and seeing the results of those, even though it's like, there's other stuff out there. Oh, there's other things that can be learning. It's like, no, let's actually learn what's here with the books, or let's enjoy the books at least, or, oh, let's not go spend our time and money and energy shopping. Like, let's do some other things instead. So that's great. Is there anything else that your 10-year-old can see you needing to do right now? Any small changes with your life?
Letting go of perfection would be something I would really like to shed because it's not benefited me much or at all. Like, I have attention to detail. I like things to be a certain way, but if it's gonna get to the point where that thing doesn't happen at all, then it's really counterproductive and I
Yes.
hate it. I just can't deal with that. It's affected me so much, not just mentally, but financially too, where I find myself stuck or like executive dysfunction just starts happening and I find myself stuck. And I hate feeling stuck.
Yes. No
And
one
I feel
likes
like
feeling stuck. It's awful.
that perfectionism is one of the things that gets in the way of that.
Yeah. And a really nice thing to say to yourself if you see yourself going into that perfectionism mode, especially with getting things done, it's like, if people don't like me other than being the perfect and showing up perfectly all the time, then they're probably not going to like the real you anyway. And that's probably someone you might not want in your life, because they are going to always need you to be perfect, and they're always going to need you to show up in that way, rather than embracing like, oh, this is the best I could do with everything. Like, this is the best I can do right now. Or, look, I tried my best with this. And if people aren't okay with that, then that's on them. And that can be a really nice reminder of like, look, I understand we've got people to impress. I understand that. But at a one point at 80%, it's going to have to be good enough, or try 90. Or you could start by like, okay, I'm going to try, instead of going to 100%, I'm going to try 97% and see how people take that. And then see how people react to this. And are people okay if the wording, every single wording isn't perfect, or if the punctuation is off just a smidge? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I found myself having to lean on other people to give me their opinions on things that I do or want to do to make sure that it's good enough or make sure that grammar is correct or I'm not sounding salesy or I'm not sounding, you know,
Yes.
some any remotely negative energy. Like I do not want to put that out there as my voice. And because I'm still working on my own self-trust, I just don't know. I need at least 5 people to tell me it's okay before I can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's perfectionism or if that's anxiety, but something.
Well,
I
perfectionism
can't.
usually has anxiety attached to it. So instead of 5 people, try 4 and just see how it goes. And it's going to be anxious and you're going to be weirded out and it's going to be hard. But at the same time, you're going to have, like, this is when part of you needs to step up and say, look, we're going to try this. We're going to see how it goes. And if people aren't okay with us being a perfectionist all the time, because look at it, what it's doing to you, look how it's exhausting you, look how it's impacting you all these different ways, then they're not going to be right for me in the long term. And a part of you can, and what's really nice is your adult self-ethicist can be this really great leader of being like, no, we deserve better than this. this doesn't match who we are deep down of wanting probably authenticity with other people. And at a certain point, we need to value that and value us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like I always hear that voice. I do. It's a pretty loud voice that I have, but they fight a lot, and usually children screaming tantrums always win.
Yeah. And then this adult self is gonna have to step up and say, look, I hear you, I get this, I get that you're scared. It might be really impacting your worthiness here, because your 3-year-old is going to be like, this is going to impact my worthiness, we can't do this. But your adult self is going to have to step up and say, look, our worthiness is not attached to what we get done. Our worthiness comes from who the hell we are inside, and it's not based on what we get done in the world.
Yeah.
We're going to try this even though you're afraid. And a part of you is still going to have a hard time, and you can just try something new. And then it'll understand, like, I can relax around this, and I'm going to care about getting things done. But at the same time, I know it, even if it's not perfect, I'm still lovable as who I am.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you?
Weird. Like my brain is telling me, how do you let a 3-year-old control you?
So many people do this. It's really the decision makers here. These parts battle with everybody. These battle.
Yeah.
And so much of this is getting that decision making inner child to relax. It's like, it's okay. I get that you're scared. I get this. And at the same time, we're going to do this anyway. It's okay to be scared and do things anyway.
Yeah. Uh,
How are you doing right now? I feel like I've thrown a lot at you today.
I mean, it's nothing extra on top of what I was already feeling, so
Okay.
that's fine. It's I guess it's just a good process, like for mindset change and just slowly trying to, the more I hear it, maybe the more I'll believe it, or the quicker I'll believe it.
Yeah, and paring back a little bit at a time is going to be a lot easier than going from like perfectionist to like 80%, because that's going to be too scary. So it's like go from 100% to like 99% and see how that goes. See if that's safe, because part of you is figuring out, is this safe or not to do this, to relax a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Um, what what does what does an average person's value look like? Like what does that even mean? What is a normal?
Are you talking about values or value as to who they are?
Like their worthiness.
So worthiness a lot comes from inside of you, and it's really dependent on how much they believe it. So it's worthiness really comes from how it's decided by several things, and it's decided by the trauma that you've experienced, how much you've gone through that and sorted through that. It's determined by your ability to and willingness to change these things, because absolutely these things can change. And there's people who've said things like I did another recording with one of these, another of these anonymous recordings with someone. She said, oh, I've seen data that says you're always going to be stuck with the same trauma and it's never going to change. And I said, no, that's not true. So it's like, how much are you believing these things? Because people can get over anything, especially with this model, this work. I've overcome so much stuff, so much stuff, and I continue to keep growing and evolving. It's like this thing is endless, which is good for me because I have a lot of stuff to work on. And then it also depends on where you are at in your life. So it's really a function of your health, your emotional healthiness, your worthiness. And if your worthiness is a struggle, then it's usually showing that something has impacted it, and it's just learning how to dust the impact off, figure out what changes you need to feel more secure with your worthiness, and then it'll click inside of you. Or because I have worthiness inside of me that people can't touch if they like it shows with the right people, and other people they just can't touch it. And then I've got other worthiness that's up in the sky that other people can't touch. And that sounds very weird, but that's how it's worked for me.
Yeah.
Did that answer that question?
Yes and no. I guess I'm still confused because it is upon me to find that, and I'm very clueless about that right now. So
Yeah.
there's no one size fits all answer for that.
Yeah. And there is going to be no one answer either. And if you're trying to think about it, that's probably your TE trying to figure it out. And it can't figure it out. So it just needs to focus on relaxing. I feel like the worthiness, the more you relax, and so instead of trying to figure out the worthiness, work on relaxing even just a smidge with the perfectionism, and try out that and see if that's safe. And then relax a little bit more and try that out and see if that's safe. Because that, I think, is going to show you what worthiness is inside, more than you trying to understand it and figure it out.
Okay.
So it's like focus on this other thing, and then all of a sudden the other thing will click. That's how I kind of do stuff. And that's how it's worked for my clients before. It's like, yeah, I know you want this thing, but let's focus on this, and then this will change.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be a journey for sure.
And you're on it. You're on it. So, and you care. And if you're willing to care and keep making the changes, even though they're uncomfortable, you'll get there.
I hope so.
Any final questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. So thank you so much for your time today, and we will see you on the third and final session.
Thank you.